What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Rams Brothers. I'm your host, Dean, and I'm joined, as always, by my brother and the other great host of this show, Nick. It's draft season. We're less than a month away from the NFL draft. The Rams have met with a bunch of tight ends. They met with receivers. They met with linebackers. What the hell are they going to do with that first-round pick? Before we jump into all the details about who they could potentially draft in the first round, or maybe even trade down to the second round, first and most importantly, it's been a little while, Nick. How are you?
I'm good. I mean, this is really, you got to be a lunatic right now to care about football because you have March Madness, opening day baseball, and Dean and I sitting here talking about football and the potential draft picks of the Rams. But I mean, it's the top thing on my mind. They just released the over-under win totals for the teams this year too. I listened to a podcast about that, and I was just like, as fun as baseball is and March Madness, nothing beats football. It's King Kong.
It's full all year round. I mean, there's always stuff like they're at the league meetings right now. The coach's picture just came out. Nick, you were talking to me about Nick Sirianni's outfit versus Sean McVay's versus Matt LaFleur's. They're talking about banning the tush push. Like it's a full season thing. And if you're a draft fanatic, like we can be, and I think you really kind of got to set your mind to it because you got great basketball on right now with March Madness. Like you mentioned, baseball just started, the Dodgers, the Lakers. Like there's so much good sports after this void of sports following the Super Bowl. Like it all just came back. So You got to reset your mind to get yourself back in the mood for football. But once you start digging into these prospects and you think about this next season, you think about some of the free agent acquisitions, you think about the Devontae Adams and some of the more recent guys that they just signed. Nate Landman, inside linebacker, who had a ton of fans excited, but not really because Troy Reeder and Christian Roseboom are no longer here. Like there's some good stuff that you can kind of pick and choose from and try and figure out like what the Rams are going to possibly do in this upcoming draft. And I think it's going to be a fun one because I think a lot of the conversation that's going on right now is they have this first round pick at number 26 overall, but then they had this huge gap with the third round pick at number 90. And then they got 101, which is a comp pick. They got 127 in the fourth round. And then they got 4 sixth round picks. So a lot of people are saying, are they going to potentially trade out of the first round and maybe move a little bit further down in the second round and maybe take best player available? You know, you're looking at the Jaxson Darts of the world. You're looking at the Colston Lovelands. Like some of these guys, Luther Burden, Matthew Golden, like there's a lot of different higher end players. And one of the things I was talking about today with our dad was like, there's only probably going to be 3 or 4 quarterbacks going in the first round. So a lot of the skill players are going to be funneled to the top of the draft. So in your opinion, I want to know, what do you think the Rams should do, or what do you think they're most likely to do in the first round?
I'm going to give the same answer that I probably gave last year when we were looking at the draft prospects. And Bowers was totally like, number one, like what we were thinking. And we were like, okay, maybe they trade up for him. They should get a tight end. Higbee's going to be down. They are lacking tight end talent. They have for a while. And I remember placing a bet that their first pick would be used to get a tight end. And then they ended up not drafting a tight end at all. I mean, if you're at a position at 26 where you one of the amazing tight ends is still available, I think that's what you do. Or you potentially trade up and lose some of the, to secure that spot. Just because, I mean, right now I'm like, I love our defense. Our defense is young. They're great. Bring in more skill guys. The offense last year was stagnant. They hit a wall of how high that they could fly. And if you bring in, amazing tight end talent, I mean, there were in that Eagles game, I think 2 of the touchdowns were to tight ends. Higbee had one, and Allen maybe the other. I can't remember.
Parkinson.
Parkinson. So it's like you feel like there is a desire in the offensive room to bring in more tight end talent. And Higbee's getting older, but I mean he was great when we had him last year.
Yeah, it seems like the receiver itch may have been scratched with the re-signing of Tutu Atwell with Devontae Adams, but like this priority over the past couple of years between Brock Bowers, between Dalton Kincaid, like there's a lot of noise that's coming out of the Rams' front office and coaching staff that puts out a signal that they may need a tight end coming up soon. And you know what? The odds I think are really interesting, right? Because It just came out via DraftKings. The Rams' projected position of first drafted player. Offensive lineman is plus 225. Cornerback is plus 225. Defensive line / edge is plus 500. Then tight end is plus 550. Then quarterback at plus 750. And then linebacker at plus 800. So in this episode, I got players from all 6 of these positions that we're going to talk about that the Rams either could take in the first round via trade up or via trade back in the second round. And this is a list of all of the players that the Rams have met with so far. So I agree with Jimmy Butler. It's a tough list to read. I'm going to read it really quickly. And just to sum it up, there's 5 tight ends on this list. So Gunnar Helm, Colston Loveland, Tyler Warren, Mason Taylor, and Molokai Matevo, tight end from UCLA, is one that I haven't studied a ton. The other 4, I think a lot of people are really, really familiar with and could be the first 4 tight ends off the board. Although there's the Harold Fannons of the world, there's the Elijah Arroyos. So I think that there's a lot of tight end talent, but the first 2 guys, Tyler Warren and Colston Loveland, are likely going to go somewhere in the top 20. Then receivers, Isaiah Bond and Matthew Golden from Texas. Tez Johnson, a.k.a. Tutu Atwell 2.0, wide receiver from Oregon. Torrey Horton from Colorado State. Trey Harris from Ole Miss. Quinn Ewers and Jalen Milroe at the quarterback position. This Jalen Milroe conversation is going to be really interesting. And same with Jaxson Dart, who we're going to talk about in a second. Kelvin Banks from Texas. Torselli Simpkins from South Carolina. Jared Wilson from Georgia. All offensive linemen. And then you got Jonas Sanker, Malachi Starks from Virginia and from Georgia. Defensive back, Zy Alexander from LSU. You got Dorian Strong from Virginia Tech. Danny Stutzman, linebacker from Oklahoma. And then Jihaad Campbell. So we're going to talk about a lot of these guys in this episode. But I think the conversation that's always going to be the most fascinating, because it's the most important position on the field, is the quarterback. So
yeah, you left off Archie Manning.
He's not coming out till next year.
No, I know. But, I mean, there were pictures of Les Snead and him hanging out, circulating online. I more of a joke, but it is funny that is potentially on the radar.
The connections at Texas are strong. So Les Snead's stepson, Tate Haver, is one of the long snappers. It's actually the son of his wife. It's a new relationship that he married into. So it's a stepson of his. He's in Texas. Sean McVay and Sark are really, really close friends. So you're going to see a lot of Texas players on that list, and then a couple of them we're going to preview in this episode. But even Quinn Ewers, who I don't think a lot of people are all that high on, but he's a guy that they met with, I think, at their convenience. So Jaxson Dart, I just saw Shedeur Sanders get mock drafted in one of the CBS mocks recently at 26 to the Rams. That to me would be a more exciting draft pick. But I think there's a lot to like about Jaxson Dart. I think a lot of his success has been scheme dependent. So he was with Lane Kiffin. Before he was with Lane Kiffin, he was with Lincoln Riley at USC. He decided to leave USC because Lincoln Riley brought in Caleb Williams. So he has thrived at Ole Miss. He's a natural athlete, solid mobility. He's really, really light on his feet. He's good at slipping sacks. He's got a quick release. But he's got a lot of the intangibles that I think a quarterback needs. He was a baseball player back in high school, 2-time All-State baseball player. So he's got some of those like natural athletic fundamentals to be able to kind of, maneuver in the pocket and change arm angles, those kind of things. He tends to be a back foot thrower at times. I think the reads are kind of what concerns me, just being able to really kind of develop through his progressions as a natural passer. I don't see that him scanning the field, like just being able to kind of be a coach's kid and go through your progressions, go through your first and second read and hit one of those open guys, I think is really kind of what his bread and butter is. I think he's best fit in a shotgun-based system. Very, very limited under center, just 8 snaps in 2 seasons. And he's got a high play action reliance. So those things scare me a little bit. But I think that the relationship with, talented kid recruited by USC at Ole Miss, who had a really good season this past year. But I think in comparison to like a Jalen Milroe or a Shedeur Sanders, I think people want more of that dual threat type of quarterback. And I don't know. Dart is
That's exactly what I was going to say. Sanders is a little less exciting to me if they were to bring him in, just based purely on the fact that he is, not exactly the super athletic guy. I mean, he's more of like the kind of kid that will, make the throw and take the hit as opposed to like, avoiding the pressure. And they have talked so much in length, particularly Snead, about how when you have a guy with legs and they can extend the play and keep the drive alive, that means so much more. It's so difficult to plan for a quarterback like that, with like somebody that's like Jalen Hurts, that it isn't really in that top echelon, but has that ability to extend the play and keep it going. Somebody like that under the McVay scheme could be, I mean, we haven't really seen it, could be huge, which is why the Jaxson Dart is a little exciting. I just don't want that. Like, to me, that's more of a pick for the future. You're thinking about further down the road, and when you just got Stafford for another year, and hopefully you get him for another year after that. I want them to mainly be like bring in the most talented person in that 26 spot left available. Use him on your roster, and because if you draft Dart, he's not going to play unless Stafford gets hurt. You don't
wouldn't play for a couple of years. You're totally right. Jimmy G's on a 1-year deal. Obviously, Stetson Bennett's still on the roster. I would be more excited if somebody like Jalen Milroe was available in the 3rd round and you were able to invest that type of capital on a quarterback versus going all in at 26. It just feels like, and I like the approach of best player available, but I'd rather have somebody that runs a 4.38 to be able to see what he would do, like a Jalen Milroe in Sean McVay's system, while you can let him develop as a passer under Matthew Stafford, under Jimmy Garoppolo. So it's definitely going to be interesting.
Yeah. I would be more shocked. I mean, the fact that you showed the odds, and I was just like, they have no idea where they're going. Yeah. Like they have zero idea. The fact that they have quarterback at like plus 750. It's not like the Rams are really giving anything away. So hopefully it's just something that keeps us excited. I think the simplest thing for them to do would just be like an offensive tackle and just move on with
and there's a couple of guys that would be like the safest and future protecting pick. And also, like, you alleviate some pressure on Matthew Stafford to be able to have legitimate depth. I feel like they couldn't play football when Rob Havenstein wasn't on the field last year. So, like, I would like some insurance for Havenstein, who
it did feel that way. There was like that Miami game. You're just like, what are we watching?
Exactly. So, like, you could definitely get there. But then also, like, you look at tight end, and I know they're plus 550 to take a tight end, but if you trade up to like the 18 to 22 range, you might be able to get a kid like Colston Loveland. And I love the kids that are like great high school basketball players that bring like that natural, lean, physical athleticism to the building. Like, I think of the Jimmy Grahams, I think of the Antonio Gates. I know the Jimmy Graham comparison may be a little bit crazy with Colston Loveland, but that's instantly where my head goes, is like that red zone threat, polished route runner, can play inline, can play a little bit outside, has the versatility to move all over the field pre-snap, which is what I really like about Colston Loveland. I think Tyler Warren is like your meat and potatoes pick, where Colston Loveland has that, like, I'm 20 years old, it's going to be 21 when the season starts. The upside is insane, has a build that can put on a little bit more weight, be a little bit tougher. I think the knock against Colston Loveland, and it's what I hear all day on Twitter, is just that his blocking isn't there. Like, his length advantage against linebackers and secondary defenders is there, but struggling against trench players as an inline tight end is a pretty big concern for a tight end. I think the hand placement's really good, the footwork, the leg drive, the fundamentals there. But like, as a polished route runner with a route tree like Colston Loveland, with the ability to make contested catches, with the ability to get some yards after the catch, like, I would like somebody in the building that has that type of talent, but can also grow underneath two players that are going to be under contract next year, Tyler Higbee and Colby Parkinson.
I feel like Higbee's that really nice balance between good blocker and like can get open. But like, if you go on like the complete other end of the spectrum with like Kyle Pitts, somebody that is almost essentially like a wide receiver that is just like a bigger man, where it's like, I'm going to go up and get the ball, bring it down, and be stronger than you. That's kind of more what we're seeing here. If Higbee can stay healthy, to have both of them in the rotation, because it really does feel like it's without Higbee, the tight ends are lost.
Yeah. So, hey, I would love to go Tyler Warren Like I have a buddy who's a huge Penn State fan who I said, can you please tell me one bad thing about Tyler Warren? He's like, I genuinely cannot. Like he's going to be a top 7, top 10 pick. So I think he's outrageously good. He's going to be good instantly. Colston Loveland's a little bit more of a project, but you have the talent. And he's not going to be somebody that needs to be on the field all the time in year one. So I think that could be a really smart pick. And I think there is a pretty significant drop-off from Tyler Warren, Colston Loveland, and then maybe you go Ejiro Arroyo, then maybe you go Harold Fannin Jr. So I like the player a lot. I see Jimmy Graham type upside, which is why I'd be pretty interested in him. The next guy, Nick, there's a lot of fun things about Luther Burden that we're going to learn in the next couple of minutes. A lot of the off the field stuff has been kind of creeping around Twitter as of recent, but this is as versatile, as five-tool as an athlete can get at the receiver position. Agile, explosive, powerful, balanced, plays the X, plays the flanker, plays the slot. He could be a move receiver, so like an X or like a Z guy, like a Puka Nacua can be. Really quick off the line of scrimmage. First step explosiveness helps him beat that type of press coverage. He's 5'11", but he's a little bit stockier than a typical 5'11" receiver would be. He's almost 210 pounds. He's going to be 22 towards the end of this season. Yards after the catch is ridiculous with Luther Burden. Like he runs like a running back with really good vision and contact balance. He does have some blocking limitations, and a lot of these kids that we're talking about in this episode are a little bit younger, so they may not be perfect molds for a Sean McVay type team. But just like he doesn't on the field, he doesn't do anything wrong. He came into the NCAA, 5-star recruit. He's the number 1 receiver in the class. He posted 1,200 plus yards as a sophomore. NCAA receiver, leading receiver in broken tackles with 30. I thought this was pretty absurd. And you look at just the success that Malik Neighbors had this past season. Missed tackles forced in the final college season via PFF. Malik Neighbors 30, Luther Burden 30. So the yards after the catch is ridiculous. I think a lot of Rams fans, especially St. Louis Rams fans who watched him at Missouri, really, really like Luther Burden. I just don't know if he's going to be available.
What's the off-field stuff?
There's just some drama, I think his mom is his manager and his girlfriend's really involved in his life. And there's some social media stuff that he's gotten involved with. But I mean, Lamar Jackson's mom is his agent.
Yeah, I was going to say that's kind of a plus in some scenarios if he's super close with his family. I mean, as long as it's not drunk driving or anything like that. I mean,
no, I don't think it's anything along those lines. I think it's just he's maybe a little bit different off the field.
That's ridiculous that I just got a work email on Sunday. Sorry, let me close that window. The name itself is so powerful. This is just completely just a sidebar. Luther Burden is badass. I think our wide receiver room though is so full. With the fact that they brought Tutu back, which I don't think anybody was super excited about. But you have Tutu, now Adams, now Puka, Whittington, and it just feels like you can only get the ball to so many people. And to use such a high draft pick on him. I mean, but hey, if he really is as talented as you say he is, and you think he can come in 21 also, I feel like if you're getting somebody that's 21, that's a little better than them being on the super young end. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like the Rams recently have been drafting players that are 24, 25 years old. These 21-year-old kids are very, very young. So they're a little bit unpolished, professionally and personally, but on the field, they're almost as polished as you can get. I just think just the performance in his final year, the production was a little bit down, but a lot of it had to do with the quarterback play. I think he's going to go high. He probably is going to be out of reach for the Rams at 26, but it's just a player that I really love and I think is going to have a good career. The next guy, a lot of fun facts about him, is a wide receiver from Stanford, Alec Aomanor. I like the size, the physicality. I think he's going to be a prototypical X receiver. The size, the strength, the experience against press coverage, high football IQ, was an honor student all throughout his life. And then he gets to Stanford. He's extremely successful in school. And I think he's got a really, really good understanding of the game. A 2024 production dip, I think, was a relation to Stanford's struggles. And I think Andrew Luck is now in charge of that program, and he just fired the coach. So a lot of it kind of has to do with the inefficiencies of Stanford's offense in general. But his release package is really good. He's really good against zone and man coverage. I think separation's key. And I failed to mention this with Luther Burden, but separation, I think, is what the Rams offense needs in general. But like to be able to do it against zone coverage is something that Puka and Cooper Kupp did really well. That's something that I feel like A.O. Manor does really, really well. And contested catches, I think he's been pretty good, but he could improve in that area a little bit. I think the separation skills, though, like the way he does it is very Puka-esque. It's very Cooper Kupp-esque with the shoulders and hand shimmies and route veering and attacking blind spots to create space for himself. And he's also an elite blocker, which is why I feel like he's a good fit for the Rams' system. No holding penalties on 517 run blocking reps from 2023 to 2024. Also, he was born on June 15th, the same day that Cooper Kupp was born and the same day that I was born.
June 15th is
soft spot.
Secretly an amazing day for the Rams, June 15th, because Cooper Kupp. I'm wearing my Cooper Kupp coffee hat, even though he's no longer with the team. Great hat. Dodo coffee is great, but it just sucks that still great colors. Now you can get it in teal and like ugly green and blue. It's disgusting.
You got to think 517 reps with no holding calls on run plays. Born on June 15th, understands how to separate against zone coverage. Like that to me, that's the type of player that you could probably trade back for. Because, the Matthew Goldens, the Emeka Ibukas, the Luther Burdens, like those guys are probably going to go a little bit earlier. Might be able to trade back to 45 or 50 and still take this player. So.
That's kind of what I want. I kind of want them to trade back. So I feel like when you're that high, you're expected to make this like big flashy move. And I don't think this is the year for them to make the big flashy move. I feel like the Devontae Adams, that was the big flashy move. And, maybe I heard there's potential talks of like Von Miller coming back, which I don't know how excited people would be about that reunion. But that is the kind of thing where I'd be like, you're making moves on the offseason. You're doing stuff fun. But separation is huge. And I forgot to mention last time about Luther. Yak. The Rams, all about the yak. And if you can bring in somebody that can bring in more yards after the catch, huge. Because that is where Puka and Cooper thrived.
Yep, you're exactly right. That's what they need. That's what they've been talking about this offseason, separation yards after the catch. So those are two guys that I think you guys should definitely keep your eyes on that are more of McVay's type fits. So we're going to get into the offensive line now because the offensive line is the favorite to be selected in the first round. So, Nick, I think most people have a good Armand in their lives. You have an Uncle Armand. I have an Uncle Armand. This is Armand Membou, offensive lineman from Missouri. I think like if you have any concerns, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, but if you have any concerns about Rob Havenson's future, this is the player that you absolutely need to draft. He is a right tackle at heart, but he could play anywhere on the right side when called upon. Every single time I watch him, like every snap at Missouri has been at right tackle. So he is dominant, over 2,400 snaps at right tackle over the past couple of years. So I think it's been 3 years, actually. So I think just starting caliber everywhere on the right side, multi-sport athlete. He's a football player, wrestling, tennis. Before he committed to Missouri, started at Missouri over the past 3 years. Excellent natural flexibility, foot coordination and balance. I think as a zone blocker and contact handling and combo blocks, like the new duo scheme that they run, but they also mix in a lot of zone blocking in the run game. Armand Membou is that guy. He's listed at 200 or 325 pounds. Many say that he needs a little bit more consistency with his power, but he's a really, really, really impressive athlete that I think could take over Rob Havenside's job as soon as he decides to hang it up.
I love the multiple sports out of any athlete. Like if you're drafting a guy and did you say tennis? Armand plays tennis. Yeah. That's awesome. But that's like a really like they say that's the best thing to do for a kid if he's athletic is to have them play multiple different sports. So then like, you're stretching parts of your body that you wouldn't think to naturally stretch. You're just always being athletic. And if they don't trade up or back if they were to bring him in at 26, I would say like perfection, like perfect. You're 100% on the right track. You're not like you're taking the boring pick in offensive line. You're not worrying about like that's just saying like, hey, we feel really good about our skill position players. We want to lock in somebody if the offensive line somebody goes down somewhere. And that was our crutch last year. It felt like somebody goes down and all of a sudden our team can't put up more than like 7 points.
I'm just afraid, again, that he's not going to be there. But if he slips, because, I mean, you would think that some of the left tackles would be off the board ahead of time. But I think Armand Membou,
a lot of people have to, like, pick for their jobs, too, when they're that high. They have to make a splashy move. So it's like, maybe there's a chance that by 26, he is still
I hope so. And I think a pretty decent second option if he's still on the board. I know we talked about the connection with Texas. This is a player that the Rams met with, Kelvin Banks Jr. This is a 5-star recruit, started left tackle for Texas since his freshman year. He's been dominant at left tackle for Texas. So if you've watched Quinn Ewers, you've watched Kelvin Banks, over 3,000 snaps at the left tackle position for Texas since he was a freshman back in 2022. So he's been a mainstay there. I mean, you just re-signed Alaric Jaxson. So I don't know what the priority would be to draft a left tackle at 26 overall, but if he's the best player available, it may be a realistic option. But he's an excellent pulling blocker. His pass blocking ability is really, really strong. I think he may have some guard potential also, which is probably one of the reasons why he could potentially slip to 26. It's due to the arm length and the run blocking strengths. So if he does transition to guard, maybe that's a little high to draft a guard player, but I know the Rams like swing players that could bounce between tackle and guard, especially on the left side, which is protecting your quarterback's blind side. But the lower body is really powerful. The arm strength, I think it's there. He's got shorter arms, but he's got leverage. He's got power. I don't see any major issues with his leverage. He's really got a really dense lower body. So 6'4", 320. He's only 21 years old. But this is a kid that, like you could see, I think he's protecting Arch Manning in this picture. It looks more like Arch than it does Quinn. He's just one of those guys that, like, I think you plug him at any position on the left side and you're comfortable with what you've drafted, and, your quarterback's happy as well.
Yeah. I mean, similar situation, but I mean, less exciting just based on the position of the player. But I mean, I would still be happy if that's what they decided to do. I like I've been saying, I think you should be in the mentality that's like, okay, we have a team that can go out there and compete for a Super Bowl. So let's bring in talent that can help right now. And if that's the best available player at that time, go for it,
Same situation with Havenstein. Remember when Alaric Jaxson was hurt for he got suspended for conduct detrimental to the team or whatever it was for the first 2 games of this past season. And, you had a revolving door at left tackle, and it's just you miss out on those kind of things. Like a couple more wins would have locked you up a couple of weeks early. You would have had 11 wins, 12 wins. It could have impacted seeding in the playoffs. So like some of those early games against NFC opponents that you lose because your left tackle's suspended, like that's an opportunity to have that player on your roster and ready to go. So transitioning over to defense, we'll cover this for like 15, 20 minutes. Jihaad Campbell, an interior linebacker from Alabama. So, Nick, I think this will be relatable to you, to me. Attended Timber Creek Regional High School in New Jersey. I think you're pretty familiar with Timber Creek as a Eustis guy, as am I.
I'm more familiar with Timbers Island, but where's Timber Creek?
I want to say that it is further south towards the Jersey Shore.
Oh, okay. Maybe I did some cross-country meets there or something.
I think you did, because I definitely had some games against them at some point.
Yeah.
But he was a receiver. He was a defensive end. He grew up in New Jersey. He committed to Clemson at 16 after some good convincing by their staff. And then all of a sudden, Nick Saban swept in and said, maybe you should come to Alabama. So Campbell ended up in Alabama. Versatile as all get out. Can play any linebacker position. I think he's best suited as a Mike or a Sam in a 4-3 or a Mike or an edge in a 3-4. So has the type of versatility to be able to rush the passer on the line of scrimmage or also play in the second level of your defense, call plays, command the huddle, those type of things. So, your quarterback in the middle of your defense, do you have that with Nate Landman? Do you have that yet with Omar Spates? Like, a lot of people have mocked Jihaad Campbell to go at 26 overall. I think it would just be really fun to see. The low missed tackle rate is a huge thing. Like, being able to go sideline to sideline as a linebacker is so important. I don't really care that he has limited linebacker experience because he's only played the position full-time for 2 seasons. I think the instincts are there, but, obviously he's still 21 years old, so similar to a lot of these other kids that we're talking about. But I think the lateral and linear movement is really great. I think some of the strength that he could add, he's right around the 50th percentile in weight, so he could add some more bulk. He could start lifting some more weights. He looks pretty damn strong in this picture. But he does lack a little bit of violence that you would like to see at the linebacker position. But, that does come in time. It comes when you're 23, 24 years old. And, you start to get to the pro level. So I think that would be
more excited if they started defense, if they went defense first. And once again, saying that we feel really comfortable with our offensive weapons going into the season. Like, let's build up this young defense, keep it young and hungry as we move forward. Because, I mean, that was our shining star last year. We were a defense first team. That's why we were where we got to where we were. And if you can keep that up, and then next year you have like more of a return to form with Devontae Adams back and or now in the lineup, as opposed to Cup and Stafford can really like pop off, that would be ideal. So yeah, bringing in somebody with some an inside linebacker would be awesome.
Well,
Especially
you look at
that's the number one thing people on Twitter are saying is what we need.
Yeah, and you look at the Zach Bowens of the world, right? From the special teamer to all pro, signed a $51 million contract with the Eagles. Look how damn good that defense was with a really strong, consistent front four with rotational players, and then a second level who can shut the door against any type of run game. The Ravens, the Rams, any type of top contender, the Eagles were able to keep away and play really sound defense. So I would love to see that. This is another really fun one that's kind of like a hybrid defensive back or safety type player. Nick Emmanwori, like, this is going to be like, people are comparing him to the Derwin Jameses of the world. I saw Kirby Joseph. I saw Kyle Hamilton. There was a Seahawks blog that was talking about bringing back the Legion of Boom. And this is the type of player that they need to bring in to be able to do that, to replace a Cam Chancellor type presence. So labeled as a high risk, high reward type prospect. Emmanwori, though, like, elite athleticism, the playmaking ability is absurd. Impressive size and speed. He struggles a little bit in coverage, but that's because I think he's more like a quasi box slot defender. And also, like, at the same time playing safety in a defense that wasn't all that great. There's some run game concerns. Again, he's also really young, 21 years old. But if the Rams are patient and develop him with, pair some of his instincts, refine his technique, I think you can carve out a really solid hybrid linebacker safety in sub packages. And, you saw Wade Phillips do this with Mark Barron a couple of years ago, before Wade Phillips was coaching in the UFL. So it's not unfamiliar to Sean McVay's type of defense. And I think Chris Shula could probably get the best out of him. This, I thought, was the craziest thing. The 40-yard dash was 4.38. The vertical jump was 43 inches, and the broad jump was 11.5 feet. The performances at the combine that he put up earned him a perfect 10.0 relative athletic score, ranking him first among 1,079 strong safeties evaluated since 1987.
Wow.
6'3", 227. This is the type of kid who could be a game changer and game breaker on your defense for sure.
How many reps of 225 do you have to do to get a perfect 10 score in combination with everything else? Like minimum 20?
Well, it's percentiles, so it's like based on like what defensive backs usually put up, and safeties, like, you would think that number probably isn't over 18 on average. Yeah, like, I mean, 6'3", 227, I would think you'd put it up 30 times.
Jeez, that's so many.
You think they're capable?
I don't think. I mean, I can do 30 in sets of 10. Yeah, no problem. But there's no shot I'm ripping 30 in a row.
I mean, let me see if I can find it. Bench press. Did he bench?
Oh, like find the exact number?
I don't think he benched.
Oh, wow. Well, I guess it doesn't matter. I just always think that's like the first thing I think of with the combine. My first thing is the 225 reps.
Same.
I wonder what the quarterback is. They probably don't even make them do that.
Most of them don't do it.
Yeah. Dorks.
Although, do you think Josh Allen could put up 30 reps at 225? I would say yes.
Josh Allen could probably do like 11, I would say. And he's probably the only quarterback that could.
I think maybe 11, but if Haley Steinfeld, for whatever reason, decides to move on, I'm going to say 30.
Yeah, if she's on his lap.
Oh, that's funny. What do we got next? All right, Trey Amos, famous Amos. So another defensive back. I wanted to make sure to cover him because he's a guy that I think the Rams are really going to like. I think the athletic versatility was evident all the way back when he was in high school. He played quarterback and cornerback, which is pretty fascinating as a high school player. So you got the intelligence on both sides of the ball. I would say that those are probably the two hardest positions to play on the entire field, and to do them on both sides in the same game in high school is pretty impressive. But he's as well-rounded, I think, as any cornerback in this draft. I think the ideal size, the movement skills, the coverage, versatility is all there. I think as a floor, he's a cornerback too, with very, very high cornerback one potential. I think the 2024 film shows a really, really strong baseline for him being successful in the NFL. So the college journey was pretty interesting. He went to Louisiana Lafayette, then he transferred to Alabama, and then also to Ole Miss. So he's got some pretty interesting tape across the board, but multiple coverage schemes in press man. I think that's some of the areas that the Rams need a little bit more help in. Press man, cover three, quarter schemes. He's very, very successful in all of those. I think the being able to force pretty high incompletion rates is pretty important for a cornerback. He does that pretty well. The tackling, I think, the effort may vary, but I don't know who that isn't the case with a 6'1", 190-pound defensive back. It just happens that way. So I'm a pretty big fan of the player, and I could see the Rams definitely taking it.
The only 4 career interceptions feels really low. Am I right?
Yeah, it is. It is. But then I think of a player like Quinyon Mitchell, who went this whole season for the Eagles, didn't have one interception until the playoffs, but he was productive at Toledo. So,
yeah. I mean, you would rather somebody have more of a just complete productivity and more of like a balanced career than like always being the ball hawk. And you have, specific guys for that too.
Right. Yeah. So I think he's just a guy to keep your eyes on, probably a trade back candidate. The next one, Oz Thomas, defensive back from FSU. We just got 2 more. And the last one's going to be an edge rusher. So just to level set expectations, it is possible that they do take a defensive lineman or an edge rusher. But Oz Thomas, press man specialist, anybody from FSU that wears number 8, I just think of V8. I think of Jared Verse. So this is a guy that, like, you pair him with Braden Fisk, with Jared Verse, on the back end of your defense. Like, I could just see a lot of chemistry between that group. I think the overall athleticism is there. He's got a receiver background. He excels in cover 3. I think the shuffle technique and off coverage is really impressive. Some of the physical limitations are there. 6'2", 198. We'd like to see him be a little bit more physical. He's only going to be 21 in his rookie season. He's going to be 20 years old on draft day. But this is one of my more highly coveted defensive backs that I would want to focus on at 26 years old. He had a pretty interesting upbringing. His family was homeless for a long period of time. His mom raised 5 siblings. So they were like in and out of public housing. They were in and out of apartments. It was a really, really tough upbringing, but it brought a lot of resilience. Like in high school, 3-sport athlete, great at basketball, great at football, great at track. And I see that number 8 for Florida State. And I'm immediately starting to think of like just the connections between Verse, Fisk, and Thomas, and what that can bring to the defense.
I'm just to have somebody have that background and be this successful at this young of age is just amazing signs of gratitude that he would have for coming to any team. So that's crazy. That's an insane story.
Entirely agree. Like, you got to be able to be a resilient human being to be able to fight off all that shit. And then to be 20 years old and like enter the draft and try to provide for your family. Like, you're just a really good person. So I'm looking forward to seeing how his NFL career shakes out. I have I think he's got a lot of upside. Last player, James Pearce Jr., edge out of Tennessee. This is a guy we mocked. I think it was our third mock draft that we published on Twitter, and people were like, why the hell are we drafted an edge rusher? We don't need an edge rusher. Why would we need that? We just drafted Verse. We have Byron Young. I don't want to say it's a Byron Young replacement, but Byron Young, I think, is going to be 28 years old by the time he's an unrestricted free agent. And Nick, like, are you going to pay all of these young defensive linemen at one time over a 2-year span? It just seems impossible.
Yeah, probably not. Yeah, you're going to lose some people. People are going to find better deals. And one thing we know about this Rams team is that, or like the organization as a whole, is they will be like, yeah, if you find something better, go for it, because we are not going to pay. We're not going to match what you find out there.
Exactly. And that's a little bit of my fear with what's going to happen with Byron Young, because you're going to prioritize Kobe Turner. You're going to prioritize Jared Verse and probably Braden Fisk. So
yeah, definitely.
Who's the odd man out? Yeah. It's unfortunately probably going to be Byron Young. So side-by-side comparison, Byron Young is probably 4 years older in this picture. So way more physically developed as a pro at this point. So I know the Rams, like, if you're going to find somebody in the third round and they're going to be, productive for you, you would like them to be a little bit older and cost you less. But this may be a really good investment. I just want them to have as many bullets coming around the edges and coming at quarterbacks inside and outside, just like the Eagles did. And I think James Pearce is a bullet. I think he's a bullet, plays with his head on fire.
People were that upset when we were mocked to get him on Twitter.
Very much so. Stupid pick. You guys are total idiots. Why would you ever say that?
I mean, that's just so dumb. I think he's an exceptional player too. It's crazy that people would. I mean, look, the whole point of the draft is that you have no idea what these kids are going to be like going into the NFL. Like, you have to be taking gambles, and also if somebody goes down, an edge rusher goes down, you have somebody like an immediate replacement. I think it's great. I also just to keep going hard on the defense, and that is, like I said, that's like our shining star right now. Like, yeah, get more guys that are fired out of a cannon.
When I see Jared Verse, I see power to speed. When I see Byron Young, I see power to speed. When I see James Pearce, I see speed to power. So you get a little bit more versatility coming off the edge. Like, he's super twitchy, super flexible. He uses the club, the swipe, the rip moves. Like, I think he has more of a developed pass rush arsenal than both Byron Young and Jared Verse, who rely a lot on their strength. Does he get the job done a lot? Yes. But to be one of the quickest in the draft class with hand and foot movements and just being like twitchy and quick off the edge and being able to rack up tons of pressures and to get in a quarterback's face, I think is just so important. And this is a Tennessee defensive line that rotated a lot. So like, some of his reps were reduced, which it could impact his NFL projection, which means he could fall to 26, but that's where he would live in the Rams' defensive line. He would be a rotational player to start and an eventual player that could take over for Byron Young. So fastest amongst all defensive ends as an edge player. So I think some off the field concerns, but he believes in himself, and I think he's going to be just fine.
Yeah, everybody's so young. You're right. Just around that, they're hovering around that 20 to 21 age.
Yeah, and that to me is some of the reason why the Rams may not invest in some of these guys. But I think eventually you're going to need to have some of this talent on your team to be able to look beyond the next 2 years. And like, some of these young kids, they may add a ton of value in crucial moments. And the Rams are in a good position to probably take best player available at 26 overall. So
yeah. Or what do you want them? Would you rather they trade up, back, or stay?
I would rather them. So you got to like the money too. Like, you look at the projected money for a first round pick versus a second round pick. You could save $1.5 million just by trading back and drafting the same player that you would have drafted at 26 if they slip. So like, I would like to see them trade back to like 41, 42 and then maybe you get like pick 60 back or pick 65 back. So then you have 4 top 100 picks or 4 top 101 picks versus just 3. I just think that gap between 26 and 90 is too severe.
Yeah. I think they do something similar, so it's not forever in between the first pick and then the round 3 pick.
I just don't think it's predictable because it's the Rams.
Especially in the draft. It's like we really don't know how they're going to do.
Exactly.
Yeah, love a tight end. I'm going to make the call that they get a tight end, but because I'm saying that for year 2 years in a row, it's probably not going to happen.
I think if they trade up, it's for a tight end.
Yeah.
If they stay put, it's for an offensive lineman. If they trade back, it's for a defensive back, a defensive lineman, or a receiver.
Yeah.
Or maybe even a quarterback. Who knows?
Maybe. I hope they don't do that, though, to be honest with you. But I wouldn't hate Dart.
No, I understand. I think a lot of people would like him. It's just at first it would be like, eh.
Yeah. I mean, it's something I'd be excited for. I would get myself excited for it, but like I would be a lot more excited for him than like if they did something crazy and got Sanders, because then it's like, oh, the quarterback of the future, because then the expectations are there. Dart, it's more of like an open book.
Yeah, you're totally right. I'm kind of in the camp to see like a Jalen Milroe in the 3rd round at 101.
That's just Stetson Bennett to me all over again.
Yeah, I don't remember. He runs a 4.38 though. He just has no instincts as a passer.
I just like, how many more years am I going to get the tweets that say you got to give Stetson more time? The guy's like 33.
Yeah, him and Tyler Shuck, the quarterback from Louisville, who's getting a lot of buzz, are 1 year apart. And Stetson Bennett's already been in the league for like 3 years. And Shuck is like, I guess there's COVID year. He's been it's just crazy, these quarterbacks.
I mean, those reps are good. That was the whole thing about Trey Lance, new CFL quarterback, Trey Lance, was that like he had like no reps. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
the more reps, the better, they say. But yeah, get Stenson on the UFL Memphis showboats ASAP if possible.
I'd be fine with that.
Yeah.
That's funny. All right. Well, we will talk to you guys again. We're going to do some more draft talk in the coming weeks. It's going to be fun. I'm sure this will be a sliding scale. So the more information we collect, the more we will share with you. We appreciate it. And as always, go Rams.
Go Rams. Stoked for the schedule as well. That'll be really fun when we get the schedule around like May and get to go through all that. It's a fun offseason. Looking forward to it.
Yes, sir. Talk to you soon, guys.
Peace.